Hello, welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. India and China are all set for a reset in their bilateral ties, which has soured in the last 5 years after clashes in Galwan. The bid to revive ties comes amid US President Trump's tariff offensive. Prime Minister Modi is all set to visit China later this month for the SCO summit. This would be his first visit to the country in 7 years. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is in India on a 3-day visit. He met External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar to discuss bilateral ties and trade relations yesterday. He also met National Security Advisor Ajit Doval for a dialogue on the border issue. The Chinese minister remarked that stability has been restored at the border. He added that the setbacks that India and China faced in the past are not in the interest of both countries. The sentiment was echoed by NSA Doval as well, who said, and I quote, "Peace and tranquility has prevailed over the past 9 months. Sources also tell CNBC-TV18 that China has lifted restrictions on exports of rare earth magnets, fertilizers and tunnel boring machines to India. The Chinese foreign minister has assured India that its concerns on import restrictions are being addressed. Sources have also indicated that clearances are being given to India and shipments are likely to be dispatched soon. I'm now joined by former diplomats Anil Trigunayat, also KC Singh, Anjali Prasad, former Indian ambassador to the WTO, and also with us is strategic affairs expert Brahma Chellaney. Let me go across to you, Ambassador KC Singh. Ambassador KC Singh, how do you see the developments taking place between India and China right now? Do you feel that we're now on the road towards restoring a close economic relationship?
Yes, but I think the context is important. I think to believe that the Chinese don't realize we are on a rebound from America would be a mistake. So the Chinese know that we are coming back, and is coming just a day after an extremely horrible interview given by Peter Navarro to the Financial Times. This is the White House advisor on trade, who's literally holding India responsible for the fueling of the Ukraine war by India giving money to Russia for buying oil. So it's going from bad to worse, the way it's going. Even yesterday, when Trump was meeting Zelensky and the European leaders, India, Pakistan slipped out of his mouth. So it's just not leaving him. So the Chinese know it. China is not stupid. And remember, I don't think we've ever publicly realized it or analyzed it. Why did Galwan happen in 2020? It happened months after the 2019 Houston conference, where President Trump and Prime Minister Modi were holding hands and appeared like allies in the American political system. The Chinese tend to react. Same thing happened in 62, because Nehru had reached a peak in 60 of global acceptance, global role. They then try cutting India down to size. Now, to imagine that we can go back to hugs and kisses and it's going to be normal, but we also have no option. So this was the way to go. We are going down this route, but Chinese know what we are doing, and we should know what Chinese are doing. And therefore, it's a transactional relationship. And if we think they're going to forget about Taiwan, that's why they brought it in. And we have to correct them that we've not changed our position on Taiwan. And there's Dalai Lama, and there is the border. None of that is going to get solved. The Chinese will push you and they will hand you out things because they know you are in rebound at the moment.
Okay. Brahma Chellaney, how much of the restoration in ties right now is a result of India-US ties taking a rough turn? And how much of this is because of the understanding that was reached between Prime Minister Modi, Xi Jinping at the Kazan summit in Russia on the sidelines of the BRICS meeting?
The US-India relationship began fraying much before Trump took office in January this year. It began fraying under Joe Biden's presidency. So that fraying relationship was clearly one factor in India seeking to mend differences with China. And that's the reason why the Kazan summit meeting between Modi and Xi Jinping occurred. The problem is this, that China hasn't changed its fundamental attitude towards India. It still seeks to contain India strategically, economically, and militarily. It has not vacated the areas it occupied by stealth in April 2020. But we have given up our position. Our stance was status quo ante. Status quo ante has now been forgotten. And in a way, what is unfolding really shows why India repeats history. Under successive governments, it's been happening. Because in fact, since 1947, one factor has remained constant in Indian policy: a defensive, reactive, and ad hoc approach to strategic developments impinging on India's core interests. So if you take China's rolling annexation strategy against India, for a number of years now, under successive Indian governments, China has been incrementally changing the territorial status quo in the Himalayan region. And India has been incrementally legitimizing the Chinese land grabs, not in actual words, but by, again, seeking to befriend China. So what happens is that we saw that under Vajpayee's leadership, then it happened under Manmohan Singh's leadership, and under Modi's leadership. In fact, Modi is coming full circle because his courtship of Xi Jinping from 2014 to 2019 led to the Ladakh land grabs. And now he's on courtship 2. And we know the result of this courtship 2 would be that in a few months from now, you'll be discussing, why did China stab India? Why were we taken by surprise? Something will happen within months that will again show that we are repeating history.
That's an important point. You're saying you cannot have an ad hoc approach to strategic relations, especially for an adversary like China. Let me go across to Ambassador Trigunayat. Ambassador Trigunayat, we know what we want from our relationship with China. We want those informal economic sanctions to be removed. We want less unpredictability in the relationship. But what does China want from India? If we want stable economic ties, which is our priority, what is it that we will have to address in terms of China's concern?
Well, Parikshit, as the previous speakers have said, and I would agree that as far as China is concerned, it is going to remain a major challenge for you in every geography, not only in the bilateral domain. So that is the bottom line. But that means that we'll have to work out together as to how to deal with this big power next to us. Our dependencies are very much there. How to reduce the shocks. As you rightly mentioned, that now they have agreed to lift, restrictions, export restrictions on the magnets, rare earth magnets, and the boring, the tunnel boring things and all. So those are very important things for India as well. Likewise, our trade with them is significant, even though this is greatly in their favor, but it is making your own industry drive until such time that you become self-reliant yourself. So we'll have to see, and China also looks at India as a major market. And that's why when we are talking about these border trade markets or some kind of a border trade, we are opening some of those borders. Now, that is something that is going to give us and the Chinese some kind of a CBM that, yes, we can move on. But the biggest problems remain unresolved as of now. And one of them is, of course, he discussed with NSA, and of course, both sides have mentioned that there should be a mutual respect. But so at the moment, I would say that whatever verbosity has been used in the statements coming out from both sides tends to give you that they both are at the moment committed to carry on some kind of a normal relationship. We can't be friends because still we have the center issues addressed. But it is very important to continue to talk to China, try to extract as much as we can to our advantage. And if we can keep them off from deteriorating any further, that could be useful for us. And China is also looking exactly the same way, because India is not a walkover.
Right. That's an important point. Anjali Prasad, if I can come to you, ma'am, do you feel that it's important for us to consider revisiting economic relations with China? Currently, there are restrictions on Chinese investments. Should we consider doing away with Press Note 3, which says investments from China Land bordering countries cannot come in automatically. They have to be vetted. In any case, we are clearing Chinese JVs on a case-by-case basis in non-strategic, non-sensitive sectors. Do you think we should open up, give them a level playing field? Is this important for India's own national security and industrial interest?
Okay, thank you for having me on your show. First of all, I would like to say that we have a very difficult relationship with China all around, not only politically, not only geopolitically, even in the multilateral forum. So, as Ambassador Trigunayat just said, that in every geography we have a problem with China. We are going to, face them, and we are seeing that happen even in the multilateral forum. Now, when you talk of Press Note 3 of 2020, why should we, if I ask a counter question, why should we do away with that press note? We should not. It is not in our interest to allow or open investments to all kinds of Chinese firms. And we already know their propensity, their way of working. So it will not be in our interest to open up entirely. This approach of a case-by-case basis, I think, should remain till we sort out our non-trade and non-economic issues, which I think are more important than economic relations at the moment. They affect our national security and our national pride much more directly than economic issues. On the economic front, of course, they are the bigger trading partner. They are swamping our market with their goods. We are unable to make standards or implement them. So we have all kinds of products flooding our markets. Even our big industrialists, I'm sorry to say, have become traders. And they import consumer goods of all kinds, mainly white goods from China, put their labels and sell them in the market, although somewhere inside it is written made in China. So when we say that we are taking anti-dumping action and safeguard action, and we are strengthening our manufacturing, I don't think any of this is happening vis-a-vis China. We may be taking a few anti-dumping actions or a few safeguard actions here and there, but that does not matter in the bigger scheme of things.
All right. So that's an important point, ma'am. I'm going to... You don't feel that Press Note 3 should be reviewed. Important sentiment there, important view. We're going to take a short break. We request all our guests to stay with us and hang on. Up next, we will be discussing the all-important summit that was held in the White House and whether we are close to ending the Russia-Ukraine war and the implications for India, which is at the receiving end of US tariffs. Welcome back. The other big story we are tracking today. US President Donald Trump hosted Ukrainian President Zelensky and 7 other European leaders at the White House last evening. There were meetings between Trump and Zelensky as well as a gathering that also involved the European leaders. Trump's meeting with Zelensky was much more warmer and conciliatory than their previous showdown a few months ago. US President Trump hinted at security guarantees for Ukraine backed by European leaders, but stopped short of making any concrete commitments towards a peace deal. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian leader repeatedly thanked the US president. President Trump said on social media that he has begun arranging a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. He said he will work on a trilateral meeting after that bilateral takes place. The Ukrainian president at a news conference said he is ready for any format of a meeting with the Russian president. And we still have with us former diplomat Anil Trigunayat, former diplomat KC Singh, former Indian ambassador to WTO Anjali Prasad, and strategic affairs expert Brahma Chellaney. Brahma Chellaney, if I can come with you, what's the biggest takeaway from this White House meeting between Donald Trump, European leaders, and Zelensky? Next, Trump is hoping for a trilateral between him, Zelensky, and Putin. Are we now on the road to peace?
First, in a world where the US, China, and Russia are the 3 leading powers, the Alaska summit underscored Trump's bid to redraw this great power triangle. Trump now recognizes that America's own missteps have helped drive Russia closer to China, fueling a de facto alliance that poses the gravest threat to America's global preeminence since the Cold War. So in that sense, the Alaska pivot represents good news for India because India has been concerned right since 2022 that American policy is forcing Moscow to move closer to China, and a Sino-Russian partnership or an alliance would be very inimical to India's vital interests. So finally, we are seeing some movement in Washington, and we are seeing, though, that Trump's effort to undo that policy approach is already running into stiff resistance from the establishment, which means a US deep state. But if he succeeds in actually improving US-Russia ties, which will require an end to the Ukraine war, which is the reason why he is investing political capital in ending this conflict, because America is deeply involved in this war, and this war is not going in favor of the West. This is a war which the US and its allies could eventually lose. So Trump is seeking to cut America's losses so that the US can refocus its resources and attention to the Indo-Pacific, where the real contest confronts the US, which is with China. China is the only power in the world that can supplant the US as the world's foremost power. And the Trump foreign policy approach clearly is to shift from the current focus on Europe and the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific so that the US can tackle the real challenge there.
Right. So Trump looking